So how do you approach like a digital transformation? And maybe you could use like case studies from your current gig. Um like how do you approach selling textile mills and manufacturing plants to integrate payments, payment systems? What were the challenges that you found? And I guess maybe like some high level like frameworks that you use when you're approaching a problem like this so that you don't prematurely like solution vanilla software interfaces and you just tell them like, okay, like here's how I use it. Like we're going to educate you on how to use it. But how do you just make it more intuitive and
Yeah, for
just
sure. Well, for starters, at least, the messy middle right now tends to be kind of largely served by the large banks. They've got faster payments, which is great because you typically bank with them and is say, hey, would you like to do some payment processing, and we'll do it for you, and we'll deposit the money pretty quickly. But the support tends to be terrible, and the hardware tends to not be any better. So generally technology hasn't incorporated into the kind of messy middle as much. Um, I like to kind of take the approach of like the Dale Carnegie method, which is rather than trying to pitch them any sort of solution, they are acutely aware of their existing problems with their payment providers. A lack of transparency in terms of fees because they might have seen a contract and someone's not in. Oh, they remember when they couldn't get the support and they couldn't take payments for several days on end. Oh, they remember. We've done, let's say, a campaign recently around opening ourselves up to integrating partners and trying to get people to integrate with our systems that are, let's say, a little bit on the, let's say, the medium of small to medium enterprises. And they reach out to us, and we pretty quickly find out like what's the existing problems with their existing payment provider. And usually, the two most compelling things that they bring up are terrible support, because it either doesn't exist, and that still exists right now on Stripe and Square. They make it very hard to call you, or they sneak in a whole lot of fees and they're not transparent. And, those are not two super defensible moats, having good support necessarily. I mean, from a marginal spend, it is, I truly appreciate Stripe's approach to like, it's going to be so good, you won't need to call. But if you're a medium sized enterprise, you will have issues, and you're going to get someone on the phone. So they appreciate those things a whole lot. So, we tend to kind of jump in and map out the processes and try to understand, like, is this something that can, fit for you? And their setups, especially the kind of marketplaces or the aggregators where, they're doing customer and they're trying to aggregate some sort of level of support. I like to think wherever I'm working, I'm kind of like the old Avis campaigns of the 60s and 70s, where I will admit I'm second place, but I will try harder. Hopping on the phone with people, mapping out a flow, trying to come up with, let's say, some creative solutions that, it's back to that latent need as opposed to an express need. So trying to map out flows, trying to identify the kind of lowest hanging fruit, and also trying to iterate, which is like, look, maybe you really want to, everyone wants a Ferrari. Everyone wants white label. Most people, especially in the payment space, are not going to pay for white label. So what I'll try to do with any potential client, whether it's a medium-sized business or kind of internal teams, is I've got three versions of everything that we want to do. We've got the scooter. What's the bare minimum that's going to get the job done? It might be uncomfortable. It might not, have the longevity that you need, but great. So you'll find that end of the spectrum. And then what's your Ferrari? What's like your kind of dream state of like, what does this look like? And then you're probably going to land somewhere with a third option in the middle, which is your Honda Civic. It's, 80% of the value for 20% of the price. If you really put the constraint on time or budget, you really find out exactly what those kind of value points are and trying to deliver some solution that is a Honda Civic. So trying to find those kind of marginal value adds, especially as we're a small company, don't necessarily have the heft of Microsoft. So trying to find that middle ground and any sort of option that they're looking for.
yeah, and what's pretty common with most of these businesses like manufacturing, supply chain, construction is they don't need a Ferrari. And so a lot of companies that fail when trying to serve these types of businesses is we try to go for like consumer grade software that performs well, is opinionated, but at the end of the day, they just need a Honda Civic. But right today, you can only give them the scooter, and when you take a scooter, you might get where you want to go, but it's going to take forever. You're gonna be sweaty when you get there, and so it's like, okay, let's fix the sweat problem and stuff next, and then work your way to the Honda Civic. Another no, whenever I like, because I'm passionate. Like, I don't think I ever want to work for like a SaaS company, in like the sense of like selling licenses, but like using software to digitize and like improve like legacy industries has always been something that's super fascinating to me. One thing that I've found was super powerful was just using the service blueprint framework, where you try to map like the back office with the front office with the customer, what the customer touch points are, and then you try to link the operations through back end systems and like front facing systems, and that gives you a holistic view of like what the service is trying to do like today to fulfill that service. And then you realize a lot of like the quick wins to actually fulfill that service are just like paper shuffling, like data formatting, making sure that it gets to the right place. They're not super it's not like rocket science, super complicated problems. Yet, like the end requirement, and when I was actually talking to an operations leader who was frustrated with like a product management group at the time, he's just like, we just wanted the wall painted blue. And they're like, oh, cool, let's build a tower. Right. And you just want the wall painted blue. Like when the outcome is so fundamentally simple, and it could be done with like a make.com account and some Google Sheets, technically, that's not the most scalable solution. Like why do product people drop the ball so much when you just need the wall painted blue?
I mean, in a lot of cases, it's responding to those express needs, right? But do they understand the cost and complexity to that? Um, I see it a lot especially when working with larger kind of enterprise customers and some previous companies. They want white label, but they don't necessarily understand the business model of a technology company, which is I need to build this once and use it as many use cases as possible. So if you really understand your customer's needs, well, first of all, yeah, you need to figure out, at least for the one customer, like what do they actually need, and trying to respectfully challenge. That's hard with the power dynamic, especially of a PM talking to someone that's a potential customer and not wanting to ruin the deal and wanting to be agreeable. But at the same time, it's uncomfortable, but they'll be a lot happier if you can challenge them, if you can understand their process, even a simple process map, because most people don't actually know their own processes. And even if they map it out themselves, they might realize, oh, wow, that's a lot of touch points. Is that actually necessary? Like, do I need to go through all those cycles? Oh, well, that's a process that existed. Like, well, what if it didn't? What if we changed that? Like, I like to do like a bit of a scream test, which is like, all right, I'm going to remove this process. We're going to do it in this way. Who's going to scream? And often it's actually no one. It's just, hey, that's something that was set up by a former leader. It's going to involve some retraining, but if the initiative is worth it, it's very often worth retraining or coming up with a solution that it's just like a technology company. High capital costs, low marginal costs. You spend the time, in the beginning early to figure out a good system so that your marginal cost of doing that task or serving that customer is going to be as low as possible. And you can actually realize scale in a way that a lot of enterprise kind of B2B SaaS companies, they do bend to the will a little bit too much, and that might get them the next customer, but it makes it a lot harder to serve the fifth, the sixth, the seventh after that.
Yeah, I've noticed that when a lot of SaaS companies start losing their way, it's because they start acting like a normal like service business, but the cost of implementing any software architecture. Like this is why it chafes my hide when people say, "Oh, well, no, just fail fast, just like hack stuff together, move fast and break things," when most SaaS needs to be like a utility that just works. And also, it's not that cheap to change software. Well, especially like maybe like an interface. It's cheap to do like update the front end, but like the architecture, like I've never seen an
Yeah.
re-architecture actually get fully prioritized.